The First Shogun's General, Part 10, Chapter 22, Scolding Time, Skip, 1 week POV, Yoshitsune, you're banished to the couch for 30 years, mister. My lovely wife yelled at me as I pleaded desperately with her. But honey, look! I pointed towards Michikatsu and Fuji sitting in Seiza, with Fuji leaning her head on Michikatsu's right shoulder, with them smiling lovingly at each other. She looked at them and then back towards me. Yes, I see, and... She questioned me as I said desperately, "That," I pointed towards the two lovebirds, "is how we get grandchildren." I finished as she froze. Taking the opportunity, I continued, "If we had never gone to Fuji, still haven't quite got used to the fact it's no longer Mount Fuji, then those two wouldn't have ever met. Thus, we wouldn't have ever had the possibility of grandchildren." I finished as my beautiful wife looked at me for a long minute before sighing. "I guess you're right. We wouldn't have ever had the chance, huh?" she said, as she looked at the two lovebirds who were still sitting in Seiza serenely and smiling lovingly at each other without a care in the world for what is happening around them. I nodded quickly. Yes, we wouldn't have. I mean, looking at the two of them, it's like the two were practically made for each other. I said as my darling wife looked at me and shook her head with a small smile on her stunning face. "Well, I guess since the possibility of grandchildren is on the table now, I can forgive you for making Michikatsu do that so-called training," she said as I lit up in joy at hearing that before she held up her hand. "But," she said as the air grew heavy and the temperature seemed to drop, "if you ever make our grandchildren do that torture, I will show no mercy." She finished smiling that scary smile as I shivered and nodded seriously. "Don't worry about that. I wasn't planning on doing that to the potential grandchildren. If anything, I think that since Fuji would be their mother, then they would either have lava forms or be completely resistant to lava and magma too," I said with confidence as my gorgeous wife looked at me with a sweat drop. "You and your reasoning, huh?" she sarcastically said as I pouted at her, which made her laugh. I sighed in fondness at her. She was perfect. Not in the sense of having no faults, because those faults made her who she is. She is perfect to me. Our children would agree with that too, I thought in fondness as I looked at the lovebirds. They were still in the same position with the same expressions on their faces. It reminded him of the early days with Tamayo-chan, just sitting under the stars gazing into her beautiful amethyst eyes, seeing her gorgeous smile on her stunning face be illuminated under the moonlight. In those moments, it looked like he was gazing upon a goddess of beauty. He had no doubt that his eldest son felt the same way about Fuji. He was brought back from his reminiscence by a light kiss on the lips from his stunning wife. "Good job, dear," she simply said, as she giggled at the no doubt goofy-looking smile that was most definitely on my face. Sigh, even after all these hundreds of years, she can still make me feel like the nervous man who could barely say her name without stuttering as I asked for permission to court her. He snorted, His father most certainly was not happy that he had fallen for Tamayo-chan, but still gave us his reluctant blessing. Wait, I thought, in sudden realization, where's Yushiro? I looked around the room and saw that he was not anywhere in here. That was odd. He was almost always in the same room as his mother. Something wasn't right here. I turned towards my wife, who, looking at Michikatsu and Fuji with a soft smile on her face, "Honey," I started as she turned towards me at my questioning and slightly worried tone of voice, "Where's Yushiro?" I finished the question as Tamayo blinked before smiling. I could tell she was trying to hold in her laughter. "Ah, well, when you came back home, Yushiro was in the study. When I went to get him, he asked how traumatized Michikatsu was. I told him that apparently Fuji had a conscience and fell in love with Michikatsu reciprocating the feelings. He has been in depression since in the study and has refused to come out for any reason," she explained, as I blinked before a small, soft snort escaped me. That was the reason I hadn't seen him? Because when we went to Fuji, we stayed there for several years. Michikatsu only stayed there a few months. He also fell in love with Fuji falling in love with him first. While Yushiro had to deal with a lot more problems than we did. There also wasn't truly a reward for him at the end of all that training, except more training of a different variety. He was most likely asking the commies why he couldn't have received a reward for all that hard work and effort he put in. Did I feel bad for my youngest? Yes, I did. Did I find the whole thing hilarious? Most definitely. Though I do wonder what the two lovebirds are currently thinking of right now. POV, Michikatsu and Fuji. Her eyes, thought Michikatsu, are just like lava. So beautiful, powerful, perfect. He finished the thought. His eyes, thought Fuji. They're like the eyes of a crimson moon made manifest, so handsome, strong, perfect. She finished the thought. We just kept gazing into the other's eyes, lost in our own little world that held only the two of us. POV. Yoshitsune. Yeah. He knew they were thinking very positive things about their significant other, though now was not the time to think about those two. His next thoughts were what the next training would be. Since Michikatsu already made his own technique, the next step would be perfecting it by making those forms advanced. The problem with that is that it's already been done. So the next step would be adding on more forms to his technique. So that would be the next training, coming up with new forms for the moon technique. He also knew that Fuji would definitely be coming along. Those two can't be separated from each other for a minute before meeting up again. So while Michikatsu would be doing that, he could have Fuji try and make her own technique, or if she somehow already has one, then improve upon it. It would be an exciting couple months, very soon. Chapter 23. Introductions. Time skip. 3 days. POV. Yoshitsune. It was a half-moon night as I walked along with my eldest son and my soon-to-be daughter-in-law. The path was worn from the elements, But this was no concern for any of us. Soon, we all had reached where I wanted to go. "Father," began Michikatsu slowly, "why are we at the residence of the former water Hashira?" He finished as I smiled. "Why we are here is simple, Michikatsu," I said as I looked back towards him and Fuji. "It's to continue your training, specifically making new forms for the moon technique." I elaborated as Michikatsu brightened up along with Fuji. After all, while doing the lava regeneration training, Fuji never got to see Michikatsu's moon technique or even moon breathing. Though while this is just a suspicion, I have a feeling that Michikatsu will do something incredible one day. Something that will far outstrip any of Yoriichi's achievements. Turning my focus back to the outside world, I walked to the door and opened it. POV. Sakonji. I was quietly meditating while also reflecting on how Tanjiro is doing. He has been improving, slowly but surely. I thought in both pride and worriment. Before I could continue those thoughts, the door slid open. It was the scent of sakura blossoms and steel. "You're early. The visit isn't for another month, Yoshitsune," I said as I heard a small chuckle. "Well, Sakonji, this visit has a bit more purpose than the rest of my visits." Hearing this, I turned around and two others were with Yoshitsune. The first one, the man, he had the scent of the moon. An ancient scent about him. Must be a demon, I thought, before I turned my attention to the female. She had a scent of magma and lava. She also had an ancient scent, even more ancient than the demon. She doesn't smell like a demon. So what is she then? I thought in curiosity as I turned my attention back to Yoshitsune POV. Yoshitsune. "So what brings you and your company here, Yoshitsune?" Hearing this, I smiled. "Well, old friend, we're here to continue Michikatsu's training, though also to evaluate Fuji and her skills," I explained as he hummed in understanding. "So they're your students, then?" he asked as I chuckled. "Yes, though they are also family." Saying this, I could tell Sakonji's interest was piqued. "Family, you say? They are your children?" he asked as I nodded. "Yeah, Michikatsu is my son, while Fuji is my soon-to-be daughter-in-law." I explained as I saw from the corner of my eye the two lovebirds blushing while smiling, and even holding hands at that. How scandalous! I could tell that underneath that mask, Sakonji raised an eyebrow. "I see. And what were their positions before you adopted one, and the two fell in love?" he asked as I smiled. Though I had a twitch in that smile, Michikatsu was Upper Moon, and Fuji is the conscience of Mount Fuji. I explained as without even having to guess, Sakonji was definitely shocked, speechless. I waited for a few minutes before Sakonji finally spoke up. "Can I ask you a favor, Yoshitsune?" Sakonji said as I blinked. "That's not what I expected to happen, though." I didn't mind. "Sure, go ahead," I said as Sakonji drew in a deep breath. "My student Kamado Tanjiro, you remember him, don't you?" he asked me as I nodded. "Yeah, good kid. What about him?" I asked, as I had a feeling I knew where this was going. Sakonji kneeled in front of me in the dogeza position and begged, "Please, train him for final selection. I don't want to lose another student. Not again." He pleaded as I kneeled down and lifted him back to his previous position. "You didn't need to beg, old friend. I would have done it, even if you had just casually asked me to," I said as I could see him relax at the news. "Thank you, Yoshitsune. Thank you so much," Sakonji said as I could tell he was just barely keeping the sobs he felt back. "Of course, you're my friend Sakonji. Besides," I started as I smiled at him, "while I most certainly can help with all of the physical things, Michikatsu can work with Tanjiro on his breathing. After all, not only was Michikatsu once part of the first ever generation of Hashira, once he sees Tanjiro, he will most definitely want to help him." I explained as Sakonji looked over at Michikatsu, who was slightly puzzled. P.E. Michikatsu. What does father mean by that? I thought, puzzled. Why would I want to help a random kid just because I looked at him? Well, I could think of one scenario, but it was so far out there and so impossible that I immediately dismissed it. After all, there's no way that some random kid could ever possibly look like. "I'm back, Urokodaki-san," was what I heard as the door slid open to reveal. "Yorichi?" I muttered in shock, for standing right in that doorway was a boy who was almost the spitting image of my twin. I hadn't already realized it yet, but I was slowly moving towards the boy until I was standing right in front of him. "Oh, I didn't realize you were having guests over." "Ah, hello, sir. My name is Kamado Tanjiro. Nice to meet you." He spoke with such cheer and innocence. I just stood there looking at him. "Ah, sir, is something the met—" The boy didn't finish his sentence before I wrapped my arms around him and wept. "Yorichi." Sobs. "I'm sobs. So sorry. Forgive me, Otuto. Forgive me." I sobbed out as I cried my heart out. All of these 407 years of carrying this guilt from that final encounter with Yorichi. All of it came out. POV. Yoshitsune. I smiled sadly at the sight of Michikatsu clinging to Tanjiro as Fuji just looked on with sadness, but smiled as well. I knew Michikatsu told her of what he was most ashamed of, everything that he was ashamed of. So she stayed put, as I saw Sakonji look toward for the answer. Tanjiro, especially with his current looks almost exactly like Michikatsu's younger twin brother, Yoriichi. I explained as I saw Sakonji nod and stay put. It would have to be broken up as Tanjiro was starting to look uncomfortable. Michikatsu must have noticed too as he slowly let go of Tanjiro and stood back up. "Forgive me, it's just, you look so much like my younger twin brother. You even have his Hanafuda earrings," Michikatsu said before his eyes widened once again. "Wait. Where did you get those Hanafuda earrings?" he asked as Tanjiro explained. "They're a family heirloom. The heir of the family wears them after they become head of the family or the head passes away." He then asked, "These were your brothers, but They've been in my family for over 468 years now. I decided to take over the explanation then and there. Because the three of us aren't human, I said as Tanjiro blinked before saying, "Wait, you're demons. Are you like Nezuko?" he asks as I chuckled. "Kid, you should instead be saying if Nezuko is like me. After all, I am technically the oldest," I said as Tanjiro smiled. "Does that mean that you know a way to turn a demon back into a human then?" he asked as I shook my head. "No, currently there is no such cure," I explained as I saw Tanjiro deflate and mutter out, "I see," before I continued explaining. "My wife, though, is trying to make a cure for demons, though." I saw Tanjiro brighten up at that part. "Really? Thank you so much, sir," he yelled out in joy as I chuckled. "No need to thank me, kid. Though now that you're here, I think it's time for an explanation," I said seriously, as Tanjiro quickly quieted down, allowing me to speak. "See, we originally came here to continue Michikatsu's training and test Fuji's skills. Though Sakonji here asked that I help train you for final selection," I explained as the kid's eyes widened at the last part. "Really? You'll train me?" he asked as I nodded. "Yes, though only in the physical stuff. Michikatsu here will be training you in your breathing," I explained as Tanjiro titled his head slightly. "Breathing?" I paused and slowly turned towards Sakonji, who I could tell was sweating under that mask. "Sakonji," I began slowly, "care to explain why the kid seems almost clueless of what breathing has to do with being a demon slayer?" I asked sweetly as Sakonji mumbled, "He knows, he just hasn't figured out how to breathe properly," he explained as my glare didn't lessen. "No excuse. Now, kid." Saying this, I turned back towards Tanjiro. "Yes, sir," he exclaimed as I chuckled. "None of that sir business now, all right? It's Yoshitsune Sensei or Sensei. Understand?" I said as Tanjiro nodded. "Understood, Yoshitsune Sensei," he yelled once more as I smiled. "Good enthusiasm. Though tone down the yelling, please?" I asked as Tanjiro blushed and simply nodded his head. "Good." I smiled and continued. "Now, would you show us the rock Sakonji no doubt told you to cut?" I asked as Tanjiro nodded. "Yes, Yoshitsune-sensei, follow me," he said as he walked away as the three of us who were going to be training him got up and followed him.